Well, President Trump isn't just facing fallout from those controversial comments. He's also responding to a major investigation from the New York Times into his past financial dealings. The Times is reporting that Mr. Trump engaged in dubious tax schemes in the 1990s, maneuvers that led him to inherit from his parents a sum equivalent to more than $400 million in today's dollars. Now, the president tweeted, "That is a very old, boring and often told hit piece on me." And White House spokeswoman Sarah Sanders dismissed the entire report.
It's a totally false attack based on an old recycled news story. I'm not going to sit and go through every single line of a very boring 14,000-word story. The only thing, I will say one thing the article did get right was that it showed that the president's father actually had a great deal of confidence in him. In fact, the president brought his father into a lot of deals. They made a lot of money together, so much so that his father went on to say that everything he touched turned to gold.
White House reporter Stephen Collinson joins me now from Washington. And Stephen, this was an incredible 18-month-long investigation by the New York Times, finding 395 streams of revenue that went to Donald Trump. By the age of 3, it claimed Donald Trump was earning $200,000 a year in today's dollars. A millionaire by the age of 8. These claims seem far from boring.
Right. I mean, it's a pretty fascinating story if you go all the way through it. In fact, it's the most comprehensive look into the mystery of the sources of Donald Trump's wealth. And you could come back at the White House basically and say, look, if you say this is untrue, there's one way to prove it, and that would be for Donald Trump to release his tax returns, as every other presidential candidate and president did in the modern era, and he's refused to do. I mean, this gets to one of the big questions about Trump's presidency. Now, Trump's lawyers and the White House have panned this article, saying it's 100% untrue, that it's defamatory, but they've not really given us any details of what exactly they say is untrue. And I think that is one of the reasons why this is not going to go away, and it's going to continue to be a problem for the White House. Having said that, so far Donald Trump has escaped much real political damage by refusing to release his tax returns in line with tradition. So I think the president probably thinks he can tough this one out.
And we'll have to see if he can tough this one out, because that is a question that continues to be asked of him, why he won't release his tax returns. I want to ask you more about that in a moment. But first, I just want to talk about the brand of Donald Trump, because he has spent his life painting this picture of a self-made billionaire, and he has been asked about it on the record many times. I just want to play some sound of Donald Trump over the years for our viewers.
It has not been easy for me. And, you know, I started off in Brooklyn. My father gave me a small loan of $1 million. I came into Manhattan, and I had to pay him back, and I had to pay him back with interest.
But then I have all these people writing books about, I got this, I got that. I got peanuts.
I started off with $1 million, and now I'm worth over $10 billion. Before my father died, he said, everything Donald touches turns to gold. It's absolutely, he was so proud of me, but I borrowed very little money from my father.
Borrowed very little money, but as the documents, as the records show that the New York Times have obtained, he was given more than $400 million from his father, and it looked as though on several occasions his father bailed him out when his businesses were failing.
Right, Lynda, I think this gets to the big question that many people have had all along about Donald Trump, this origin story of him being this self-made man, the man that started with almost nothing in his own telling and became a billionaire, which is something that's really, really key to his appeal, and it's something he used in his campaign. Now, I think the question is, what does the president feel about that? You know, he is somebody who is completely wedded to this idea of himself as someone that's come from nothing. That was the key to his appeal for many voters who thought that if he could do that for himself, he could do that for the country. And that is something I think the president is very sensitive about. A lot of people have actually said that they believe that the president's attacks on Christine Blasey Ford last night in that rally actually showed how angry the president was about this attack on the foundation of his own character, and he was looking not just to distract, but he was looking for an outlet. So I think that's going to be something that's going to be key to watch in the days forward.
And just quickly on the ramifications of this, where this article could go from here. I understand the statute of limitations means the IRS might not necessarily be able to look into it, but the New York State Revenue Office could.
Right, the statute of limitations have passed for sort of criminal charges. It's possible, I think, that the president could find another troublesome legal front in New York. I think what the key long-term problem for the president, Linda, is if the Democrats get control of the House of Representatives, they will have subpoena power. They will be able to launch investigations. They will be able to demand Donald Trump's tax returns, to look into his business, to raise the question if Donald Trump was doing this in the 1990s, was he continuing to cut corners and commit what this report says was fraud later on? That could be a big problem to him. And at the end of the day, what is going to be left of the myth of Donald Trump once all these investigations have taken place? And I think that is something that's probably most worrying to the president as much as the details of this.
Yeah, no doubt a lot of concerns for him right now. Stephen Collinson, good to have you with us. Thank you.
Thanks.